we are. Welcome to this week's edition of Military Collectors. I'm in a World War II 6x6 here, driven by the Colonel himself from Craigie Farms down in Florida. But I'll tell you, Military Collectors this week, if some of you all can't recognize what's in my rear back here, think 1944, June 6th, D-Day. We are in Conneaut, Ohio at the D-Day Ohio event, the only reenactment of this type in the United States to reenact the D-Day invasion of Normandy, right here this week on Military Collectors.
31, ready to check. Roger that.
Joining me now is Betsy Bayshore. She's the CEO, and I'm going to let her describe this great organization up here. This is a reenactment here in the great state of Ohio. And Betsy, thank you so much for having Military Collectors up here. What an auspicious view here, just like D-Day. You guys have really, really well, it's just over the top. Tell me about D-Day Ohio and your organization and just all the great things you guys do.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Our organization is D-Day Ohio Incorporated. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were formed specifically to put on this event once a year. We do it to commemorate the history of World War II and recognize our veterans, and also to share that history with the next generation so that the sacrifices of World War II and subsequent soldiers in combat are not forgotten. We try very hard to represent all facets of the conflict and also represent all the types of support roles and civilian roles that were a part of the military picture and the home front picture during World War II.
Well, let me take it back just a little bit, because you know, putting on something like this is just, I mean, it didn't happen overnight. So
no, it didn't.
You all started in 1999.
We did.
With just right here at this little bitty park, okay?
It was one landing with the Buffalo Navy reservists using their Mike boats, their Vietnam era boats, and they did it as a training exercise, and we would hop off and run through the water, and there was no public and there were no veterans, and that event was not put on by a nonprofit. It was just an individual, and it passed through a number of people's hands over the next, say, 5 to 7 years. And we got to a point where the organization had to make some decisions whether or not we were going to become a nonprofit and support this event fully, or if we were going to fold up shop, because those boats that we used for free for years and years were being sold.
Well, now coming through here this specific weekend, now you've got it's an encampment, okay? I mean, there's the Allied and the Axis. I mean, the French. I mean, you've got the Germans. I mean, tell me a little bit about. Give me a once over real quick of the park and the encampment itself. What can folks find here?
Just about anything. We say that we have the largest open air museum in the world. It's here for just a weekend, and so it's certainly something to see. People bring their best artifacts to share with the public and to talk about, and so they truly will bring museum quality items to share, to let people handle, to see up close, because that's what many reenactors do as their passion. It's that sharing and teaching component. What we try to do as an organization that is different from other World War II events specifically is we represent a point in time, June 6, 1944. And so our home front is ETO, European Theater of Operations. All of our US, British, Canadian, Polish, Australian troops are Europe, Northwest Europe, 1944, June. Our Germans are portraying the same. Our French are French resistance and French civilians. And so we try to really focus in on that point in time, and that allows us to raise our level of authenticity and how genuine people look, because we can push them to a point in time.
With me now, all the way in Conneaut, Ohio, a guy you've seen on Military Collectors before. He's brought his whole troop and his encampment up to the D-Day Ohio event. It's Rob Thomas. Rob, my friend, it is good to see you, Colonel.
Great to see you as well, Bob.
You know, when I came into the tent a while ago, I was asking where General Eisenhower was, and all you could give me is some peon colonel. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, this is such a wonderful event. Tell me about your history with the D-Day Ohio event up here, because I mean, it's kind of special.
It's very special. So this is our second year. Our first year we came out with Buddy and Golem, and I got to tell you, it's the best event we do. These people are squared away. They know how to handle everything. They couldn't be friendlier. The town couldn't be friendlier. Great reception. And you look at this beach, it's immaculate. It is D-Day all over again.
Well, you know, one of the things I think that's so historically correct here is the reenactors. Okay, I mean, down to the last button. And that's what's so special here. But yet, you're right. A lot of the folks, the veterans and all that, will recognize this mock-up beach, okay? And probably it could fool some of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Certainly when we're out on the tanks looking across the beach in towards the German positions, it takes you back. It takes you to every movie, every picture you've ever seen, every story you've ever read. It's the most immersive experience anybody will have, whether you're in the battle or watching it from the bluff.
Well, Rob, you know, the last time we saw you, we were at the reenactment site down in Florida, Craigie Farms. This is a little bit different. How do you prepare your guys for the mock battles that you put on up here?
So we spend a lot of time in training. We started with the World War II training. We mix in some modern military training, but for us, it's all about safety. This is a different threat vector for us. We're not actually going up against enemy Germans. We're watching out for infantry walking amongst us, civilians walking amongst us, making sure we don't hit anybody. Obviously, we operate the weapons in the safest manner possible. It's all about repetition. We practice, practice, practice so that we look good and safe on a day like today.
Well, you're going to be going up against some of Germany's finest, okay? Tell me, what's your battle plan for this one?
Our battle plan, and I appreciate if this didn't get shared just yet,
No.
is we will trundle up this main road here. We will take a flank position and we will fire across the German lines, taking them by surprise while they focus on the infantry hitting the beach.
Stay tuned. When Military Collectors returns from commercial break, we take a look at a rare WC-25 command car from the early 1940s. Every soldier's training is the same, but their story is their own. From the fields of Gettysburg to the tanks rolling across the sands of Kuwait, the story of the mounted soldier is a story of mobility, speed, and the historic power to shift the mighty tides of war. The National Armor and Cavalry Heritage Foundation is asking for your help in keeping the legacy of the United States Armor and Cavalry and telling the stories for many years to come.
We all depend on trucks.
Chevy trucks. We think it's because Chevrolets are
The most dependable
trucks.
built to last a long time. With durability.
And ruggedness.
I like the extra power.
Pulling power.
Nasty power!
And quality.
Seems they make them
Strong with extra strong.
Mile after mile after mile.
Unforgettable memories begin the moment you pick up your first Browning. With unmatched security, fire protection, and storage options, Browning will be with you through a lifetime, protecting your guns and all the cherished memories you make with them. Keep your Browning memories safe.
Take a moment to think about the food you buy and eat. Is it fresh? I mean really fresh. Or is it shipped from a grower hundreds or even thousands of miles away? Well, Here in South Carolina, we celebrate fresh, locally grown food and unforgettable meals with family and friends. So, choose food that's rooted right here. Choose certified SC grown. It's a matter of taste.
3-1, ready to check. Roger that.
Welcome back. You know, part of the big reenactment piece is, yeah, you got to have people, you got to have uniforms, guns, tanks, but you got to have vehicles. And joining me now is one of those very guys who has, well, it's a very rare command car. The WC-25 is Don Pitchers from Rockford, Illinois. He's a retired warrant officer, Chinook pilot. This guy is, I'll tell you, plus he also works on Dell computers. Don?
Good to meet you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Listen, tell me about this command car. This is a fabulous vehicle.
Sure. Well, like you said, this is a 1942 Dodge half-ton. WC-25 is its military designate. This is known as a command car, but in particular this, the WC-25s were the radio reconnaissance vehicles that they built during time. From January 1st to the end of March of 1942, Dodge built 150 of these for the U.S. Army. Now what's unique about these and the fact not only that there were so few of them built, but these were the first 12-volt vehicles ever built for anything. The standard at that time, as anyone knows, with cars was 6 volts. Well, you had to have 12 volts to run this radio in the back. And the reason the 12 volts is you're taking 12 volts off the battery to this dynamo in the back here, which converts it to 500 volts DC to run that radio. So
this is fabulous.
Sure. So again, that makes it even more rare in the fact that these were the forerunners to our 12 volt vehicles of today.
Well, let me ask you, how did you come by this? Okay, I mean, obviously you're former military. How did you become a collector?
For me, my wife got me started in the hobby. She had been doing World War II reenacting for almost 20 years before I had met her. So she got me into it. She knew a friend of hers that owned this vehicle, was trying to restore it, had always joked with him, if you ever get tired, give me a call. One day he got tired, gave her a call and says, you guys want the vehicle? It's yours. And we went ahead and bought it from him and finished the restoration on it.
Okay, now both of you all participate in reenactments?
We do. She does Red Cross, American Red Cross, and talks about the role of the Red Cross overseas, and in particular the role of the Red Cross that were camp directors, actual Red Cross stationed with the troops, and moved with them through the battles.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So traveling around the country, do you transport it obviously to different locations? Or?
I do. We trailer it to anything that's too far to drive. Now, of course, if it's close to my hometown in Rockford, we'll drive it to events within about a 10 to 15 mile radius.
This is fabulous. It is just beautiful. I have a 1942 WC-57 with the winch, and so these are just fascinating vehicles. And now I'm going to ask you, because there's not very many of these vehicles, what do you estimate the value of this being as a collectible?
It's so hard to estimate because, of course, price is relative to what a person wants for it, but on average, we could say $150,000 to $200,000. Now, of course, this one is insured for up to $300,000 because, again, the chance that you may ever find another one of these if it was totaled is just it'd be like winning the lottery.
When Military Collectors returns, it's a video game that is giving all ages a chance to see history come alive. If you are interested in preserving and collecting military vehicles, whether you're a military veteran or just have a love for military vehicles in general, then you may be interested in joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. The MVPA is dedicated to providing an international organization for military vehicle enthusiasts. For more information and all the benefits a member receives with joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association, go online at mvpa.org.
For 50 years, Ranger Boats has been paying tribute to America's armed forces and their families, not only in the United States, but those men and women who serve all over the world. At Ranger Boats, we appreciate the dedication that these men and women do each and every day, protecting and preserving the very foundations of our freedom. Ranger Boats wants to give back to America's real heroes with our Operation Troop Salute program. For more information, visit rangerboats.com today.
Start down in Port Royal with a basket of fresh oysters every bit as good today as they were back when Papa showed you how to eat them. Then to McClellanville for some fresh caught shrimp. Nice big ones you can just about hide behind. Toss in a few crabs that you pick up in Marl's Inlet, and by the time you get to Little River, you've got a seafood feast that tastes like South Carolina. Carolina caught, Carolina bought. Thanks y'all for keeping it local.
Roger that.
Hold on! Hey, whoa! Go! Off the boat! Off the boat! Go, Greg! Go! Get the ball! Right!
Well, here on Military Collectors, I'm always looking for unique finds, and I think I've found one. Okay, here Nick MORAN, he is the Director of Military Relations for Wargaming.net, and y'all need to pay attention to this because, again, the connectivity between history and what he's about to tell you is very, very key. Nick, thank you for having us here. Thank you for being here at D-Day, Ohio. This is an awesome event. Tell me about what you guys do.
Well, Wargaming.net has created a game called World of Tanks, and it's a really simplistic arcade game, which is a lot of fun. Now, what interests people who come to this event, like Conneaut, is that if you play World of Tanks, the chances are you have an inherent interest in tanks. So when we go around to these events, we set up our stands, and our players, who ordinarily play, obviously, video games by definition, come out to the event where, by the way, there happen to be real tanks and real living historians. So they come here, they have fun, and then they go over to the reenactment groups or the vehicle owners, and they get to learn about the vehicles that they've been playing with virtually. And it's a sort of a win-win, because the reenactor groups or the museums or the vehicle collector groups, they suddenly get this swarm of people who are interested in the subject matter and perhaps would have never had the excuse or even the knowledge of an event like this to come out and meet them. So everybody wins.
Well, I have to ask you, this grouping, okay, here you have all this banks of computer screens, and you've got seats for everybody, you've got the good guys and the bad guys. How does all that work? How do you guys make that happen at an event like this?
Miracles in modern technology. So we have obviously an internet connection, we have our computers, we've been doing this a few years now, so we've got it down pretty much pat. We have our traveling road show, we bring in our IT guys, our event guys a couple of days ahead of time. They do all the back work to set up computers, make sure that we have a good internet connection to the server. This is an online game, it's not something you play on your own, you must be online to play it, otherwise it just mechanically doesn't work. So once we have the internet connection, then it's just a case where we sit back and wait for the players to show up. And when that happens, we all have a great time.
Well, you have to tell me now, you've got tanks, you've got other options too. Tell me about those, and have folks want to connect and they want to play, tell us how they can do that.
Well, so the three main products right now are World of Tanks, World of Warships, and World of Warplanes. The clue is in the titles. So if you're the sort of person you never really were into being a ground pounder or a treadhead, and you wanted to sail across the seas in a majestic battleship, blowing up other battleships or destroyers or whatever, you can do that with World of Warships. Again, everything is accurately detailed. The game is not a simulator, because you can either be realistic or you can be fun. And face it, reality is not fun. But again, if you're interested in ships, what does say the Gearing class destroyer look like in World War II? You bring it up in the game, and you've got a wonderful 3D detailed model, and then you get to play around with it. So those are available on the websites worldoftanks.com, worldofwarplanes.com, and worldofwarships.com.
When Military Collectors continues, we head back to D-Day, Ohio, where we talk to a chaplain about his World War II collectibles, which are engine-driven and man-powered. Every soldier's training is the same, but their story is their own. From the fields of Gettysburg to the tanks rolling across the sands of Kuwait, the story of the mounted soldier is a story of mobility, speed, and the historic power to shift the mighty tides of war. The National Armor and Cavalry Heritage Foundation is asking for your help in keeping the legacy of the United States Armor and Cavalry and telling the stories for many years to come.
We all depend on trucks.
Chevy trucks. We think it's because Chevrolets are
The most dependable
trucks.
built to last a long time. With durability
And
ruggedness.
I like the extra power.
Pulling power.
nasty power.
And quality.
Seems they make them
Strong with extra strong. Mile after mile after mile.
For 50 years, Ranger Boats has been paying tribute to America's armed forces and their families, not only in the United States, but those men and women who serve all over the world. At Ranger Boats, we appreciate the dedication that these men and women do each and every day, protecting and preserving the very foundations of our freedom. Ranger Boats wants to give back to America's real heroes with our Operation Troop Salute program. For more information, visit rangerboats.com today.
If you are interested in preserving and collecting military vehicles, whether you're a military veteran or just have a love for military vehicles in general, then you may be interested in joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. The MVPA is dedicated to providing an international organization for military vehicle enthusiasts. For more information and all the benefits a member receives with joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association, go online at mvpa.org.
Roger that.
Well, you know, folks, on Military Collectors, you always see us basically with a military vehicle of some sort, airplane, whatever. It's always got an engine in it, but you've never seen a bicycle. And joining me now is John UHLER, Chaplain John UHLER, here in the great state of Pennsylvania. He's up here this week at D-Day, Ohio at our event. And, you know, John, I will tell you, it's a fabulous thing because, again, bicycles played a big role during many of the wars of this country, but here at the event, they're also playing another role, okay? Tell me a little bit about your collection.
Well, the bicycles were more of what every soldier wanted was an easy way to get around.
There you go.
And that's why I got the bikes, because at some events, either trying to take a Jeep through a crowd or you're not allowed to move your vehicle, there's no better way to get around an event than a bicycle. So it's still a soldier's best friend.
Well, listen, and there's a real neat story behind this, folks. You got to tell us, okay, your wife, who also supports your reenactment hobby, okay, tell me a little bit about the Jeep and the bikes, because real quickly, that is a story for the record books.
Well, my wife sent me out to get a Jeep. She encouraged me. She said, I want you to get a Jeep. So I went and looked at this Jeep, but I wasn't sure if it was the Jeep I was going to buy, but I saw the bicycle. So I bought the bicycle. I came home and my wife said, so where is it? I said, it's out in the backyard. She saw the bike. She was upset. She said, I didn't send you out to get a bicycle. I sent you to get a Jeep. I want you to go back and get the Jeep.
No, now when your wife tells you to go do that, that is just awesome.
Do it.
Give me the bump there, Bo. You do it, and so now comes up the Chaplain's Jeep. You have it.
Yes.
Now, tell me a little bit about your Jeep. Again, for reenactment, this is a perfect example for that, and of course that's why you're here. Tell me a little bit about the year and a little bit about the backstory of the Jeep.
Okay, the Jeep is a Willys 44.
Okay.
It is an original tub, original engine, and it was a barn find in Virginia. And it was restored, and then it was sold, and then it was sold finally to me.
I'll be darned. How many years have you owned it?
I've had this for about 1.5 years.
Oh goodness, there you go. Well, I mean, it's in relatively great shape. Yeah, okay, it's not concours, okay, and so for the reenactment business, as long as it runs and it's nice and it's what you like, I think it's awesome.
It's a great way to get around. It's a great way to haul equipment, and most of all, a lot of chaplains out in the field had a Jeep.
They did.
So it really completes the whole chaplain display that I have.
Although the beaches at Normandy are quiet, June 6th, 1944, the Normandy invasion reenacted right here in Conneaut, Ohio, D-Day, Ohio, to commemorate those brave Americans and those allies who gave their lives in the liberation of Europe during World War II. It's reenacted here on this beach in upstate Ohio. The folks and the names and the faces of those folks who put on this great show and this great event are great Americans. They want to preserve their collection for those followed behind them. And that's what Military Collectors is here to do. There's so much to show that we couldn't get it all in one episode. So we're going to do episode 2. We'll be right back here again next week, showcasing more from D-Day, Ohio on the Normandy beachhead. Join us, won't you, for another episode of Military Collectors. I want to see y'all next week.